When I hear other people that have been through similar things talking so positively about it, it's not that I don't love positivity. I do. But I think it's also okay to just sit back and acknowledge this is really, really hard. And I'm struggling. We're going to get through it. I don't have a doubt in my mind we're going to fight through this, but it's really, really hard.
It
And
is.
so when I sit and listen to people and they don't acknowledge that, they just talk about how great everything is, I get frustrated because I'm like, it's okay to be positive, but let's also be real about this. And
Welcome to Life's a Trip and I Forgot the Map, the podcast that embraces the messy, magical ride of figuring life out. I'm Misty, your host, your fellow wanderer, and here we trade perfection for permission to grow, stumble, laugh, and start over. So grab your emotional snacks, be sure to buckle up. We're in for a ride. Let's hit the road. Hey Paul, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Life's a Trip and I Forgot the Map. I'm so glad to finally meet a fellow traveler on life's journey, and I am super excited because I know we talked a little bit beforehand and you had mentioned you wrote a book, and I'm so excited. I want to hear about your book and how that came about. But first, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about you and how the book came about?
yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, by the way. So I live in Utah, um, where my wife and I are about to celebrate our third, I hope I got that right, 23rd wedding anniversary. We've got four
Congratulations.
kids. Thank you. We've got four kids. Yeah, like I life just kind of was cruising along for me, and then I think it was about 14 years ago. My we were at a college football game, and she collapsed at that game, and ended up having to be rushed to the hospital. Then, and I'm sorry, so much of what I say is going to be about my wife. I should
You're
probably
fine.
cite her on here. Anyways, she had to be rushed to the hospital. They did a bunch of tests. Found out, by the time a couple hours later they sent us home, she was totally fine. And then we had to go back for some more testing, and they found that she had holes in her heart, multiple, one really big hole between her two upper chambers, and then several other holes, and her valve was leaking, and a bunch of other things, and she needed open heart surgery. So she had that, and then 6 months later had to have another one, and a year after that another one. And then about 4 years ago, um, we woke up one day. My daughter was trying to, as kids do, trying to wake her up to tell her she didn't feel good and she didn't want to go to school. And my wife was just acting really funny and weird. And we ended up calling 911, and they took her to the hospital. And by the time I got to the hospital, they said that life flight's on the way. She needs to be at a different hospital for emergency brain surgery for a massive stroke that she had. So that happened, and all in, she was in two different hospitals, well, three different hospitals, and a rehab facility for a little over close to 3 months, it all in. And so this book that I wrote started as a therapy project from my therapist, who just said, you need to start journaling. You need to start writing and get everything that you're feeling and thinking, get it out of your head and just get it onto paper. It will help you. And so I started to do that. And as I did that, then I thought, I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. There's got to be people out there in the world that are struggling with similar things, who felt the same way that I did, that they're alone, that they're the only one going through stuff like this, that nobody's going to understand what you're going through. So why don't I try to put it in a format that someone else out there could read, and know that they're not alone. I mean, everybody's got their list of things that they're dealing with, big or small or whatever. Everybody has their stuff. And secondly, that they could maybe learn from all the mistakes I made along the way, and maybe help them to avoid some of those.
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, I'm sorry you guys are going through all of that and have gone through it. I'd like to know, how's your wife today? Is she okay now?
She's good. She's sick today, but she's with us, which I am super thankful for. She has some permanent brain damage from her stroke and her brain surgery. You know, she was paralyzed on half of her body for a while. She's got full mobility now. She couldn't talk, and so she was in speech therapy for a long time, and she can talk now and communicate. You can definitely tell that she has an impairment with speech, but she can communicate, and I mean, and take care of herself, which is awesome. That's a huge blessing to me that she can take care of herself every day. She actually tested and is able to drive, which is a huge
That's
blessing.
fantastic.
But yeah, like she's doing good. I don't think we're out of the woods, but she's doing good.
That's fantastic. That's so amazing to hear. I'm sending lots of love and healing vibes and everything for you and the family, your wife. It's, yes, all of it. Take it all. I love the fact that, first and foremost, I'm a caregiver. So during the week, I caregive for the elderly and disabled. So I totally know where you guys are standing at. I want to give you a little bit about me. I do want to touch on the book and why you wrote that because it's very important. But I want you to understand a little bit more about me. So, this time last year, I went through testing and I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Sitting on my pineal gland right here in the front of my head, like watching my life go by. And everything's fine. They can't operate on it. I guess one out of every 10 people have it, and they don't usually know. But it's like a 2 centimeter by 2 centimeter little lump sitting right in my third eye and my pituitary gland. They said if it gets to where it's pushing on my optic nerve, then they will remove it. But until then, it's just going to sit there and we have to watch it. So I totally understand where you guys are getting at. I get where all that stress and that anxiety and the depression and everything comes from. This last year was like literal hell for me, and it changed my life completely. Why you wrote the book and how you did it is absolutely empowering. I love the why you did it. I want you to recognize that you didn't you decided to channel that and decided to get it out. So I want to know how that impacted you. And I want you to know that what you've done, writing it and talking about it, it does impact other people. People may not respond or comment or let you know, but they're watching and they're learning and they're inspired by what you're doing. And I want you to know that. So I want to know what I know that you said that was it your therapist or somebody told you to start writing, your counselor. What did that look like for you? Did you hesitate at first like that doesn't sound like something I want to do, or are you more open to that and being like, okay, that was the first that's what they told me to do, let me go ahead and do it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Easy answer for me. I resisted it for years.
I get that.
The same way I resisted therapy for years. Because unfortunately, in the world we live in, there's a stigma that comes along with those things, and people think that they're crazy if they have to go to therapy. And especially, I'm just speaking from a guy's perspective, our pride gets in the way. Like, no, I can handle this. I don't need help from anybody. And so I resisted it for a long, long time. I resisted therapy in general for a long, long time until one day it was absolutely necessary, and we can talk about that if you want to. But in regards to the journaling, I can't even count the number of times my therapist said, "You need to start writing. You need to start writing," and I just was like, "Yeah, no, cool, I'll do that," and then didn't do it. But then
Yeah.
the cool thing was when I started doing it,
Mm-hmm.
floodgates just opened. And I just created a Word document and just started typing, and it just
Like word
came
vomit
out.
everywhere.
Yeah, just everywhere. And the number of times that I sat and bawled as I was doing that, because there were things that came up that were there that I didn't know were there, and
Mm-hmm.
it was huge for me. It was an immediate weight lifted by just getting that stuff out. I'm a huge advocate for therapy now. I feel like everybody should go to therapy. I don't care if you think that you have everything figured out. It's empowering to go and talk to someone who is outside of your situation completely. They don't know anybody that you know, they don't know anybody's perspective on the situation except for yours.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Oh, yeah. So I want to ask about this small detail because I think it matters. a lot of us, when we start journaling and thinking that we got to write stuff out, that it has to be written legibly, like you have to make complete sentences, you have to word everything properly, you have to worry about punctuation. Did you worry about any of that when you were doing this?
No, not at all. In fact, like this book was over 2.5 years process, and most of that was because of the way that it came out initially was just so jumbled and mixed thoughts and mixed feelings that,
Yeah.
someone else reading it would need a translator to understand what I meant by half of the stuff, and it would jump from one topic to the next. And so that's what kind of took the longest in this process. And I didn't work on it for 2.5 years straight. I would jump in and then
Yeah.
get burnt out and jump out, but it was reorganizing it in a way that someone else would be able to read and understand.
Exactly. So the reason why I brought that up is because a lot of people that I know, and I tell them I journal, I tell people I write it out, just it doesn't have to make sense. And they're so worried about the punctuation and everything being legible and being able to understand what you're writing, what you wrote. And it's like, that's not what matters. What matters is the fact you get it out, and then you can go back over it later when you're level headed and you're calm, and you can look at it from a fresh view and then reorganize things.
Sure.
So, how did journaling and talking things out change the way you processed what you've been going through?
I mean, journaling was huge just to be able to unload some of the feelings and thoughts that I'm a guy. B, I'm my dad's child, and whether he meant to or not, we were kind of taught to bottle things up. We're men. We don't talk about things.
Old school.
Yeah. And every time something happened throughout my journey with my wife's health or with my kids or anything like that, I immediately went into focusing on everybody else but me,
Mm-hmm.
and wouldn't even consider taking a look in the mirror and saying, "How are you doing?" It was just, I got to take care of everybody else. And so journaling was big, and I did the whole word vomit thing with this whole book and got, everything out. And since then, one of the things I love to do is just a daily gratitude journal. I just order them on Amazon, and it makes it so simple because it says list 3 things you're grateful for, list, this, and it takes 2 minutes every morning, but I get to do a little word vomit every morning, and it's huge for me. Therapy was was life changing for me. I'm convinced that 12 or 13 years ago when I first started going to therapy that they saved my life. I don't think I would be here talking to you today had I not gone in and talked to someone, because I had, and this is the part I might get emotional about. There was a day that after my wife had her second open heart surgery that I was laying on the couch on a Sunday watching football. My wife and kids were in the backyard, laughing, playing, running around. Should be a happy place for
Mm-hmm.
me. Watching football, hearing my kids happy, but I had crazy thoughts running through my head, and to the point where I had convinced myself that I didn't want to be here anymore, and no one out there understood how bad it was. And so if I took my own life, then they would finally understand how bad things were. And had convinced myself that that made logical sense. And that, when I think back on that day, it's scary to me that made logical sense to me in that moment, that was the only out. And it scares me that there are people out there right now thinking the exact same thing, and thinking that life's too hard and nobody understands it, so I'm going to do this and then they'll understand it. That terrifies me. So therapy was not only life changing but life saving for me. And I've been through a handful of therapists. My first therapist, I've been seeing him for a while, and he actually sat me down one day and said, "This will be our last appointment. I struggle with anxiety and depression myself, and I need to take some time off." And
Mm-hmm.
my initial response was like, "You can't do that. What am I going to do?" But then I thought, that's so awesome that the guy who's helping me is also struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with, and he's recognizing and acknowledging that he needs to take some time and work on himself. That
Yeah.
was huge to me. And so then I switched to a different therapist, and then a different one, and a different one. And I'm with the one I'm with now, and I absolutely love her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important that people find somebody that they can connect with when they're looking for a therapist or a counselor, somebody that they can really connect with, because you're not going to connect with everybody, and not everybody's going to be the right fit. So you have to keep trying and not give up. I
Absolutely.
yeah, I've been there too. In fact, I went to a therapist when I was a teenager, and I could have sworn I've known that therapist my entire life, and I'd never seen her before. But after a few sessions, she's like, I'm leaving, I'm done. It's like, well, okay, now what? So I totally get that. You connect with somebody so much, and then you're telling them everything, and then all of a sudden they're gone. So how are you dealing with everything now? Is it just your journaling now that you're doing it? Still doing that? I mean, obviously you're still journaling now. You said that. But is that the only outlet you have, or have you found other ways to deal with your anxiety and your depression?
Definitely journaling, definitely therapy. One of the big things that I found that I felt guilty about for a long time, and we've all heard the a million times the expression, if you're on a plane and you got to put your mask on first before you can help someone else. But I felt wrong about that. I felt guilty coming home from work and then immediately saying, I'm going to take a half hour to an hour for myself because it's important to me and I need that. And I talked to my therapist and a couple other people, and they're like, dude, that's not anything you should feel guilty about. You're doing that to make yourself a better husband and a better father. And it's important that you take time for yourself. And so if it's the summertime, I come home from work, I immediately change into shorts and I go lay out in the sun and listen to a podcast or read a book. And I hate the wintertime because I can't do that. But I've got other things that I enjoy. I still enjoy reading, drawing. I love playing golf. I have a little poor man simulator in my garage. And so I love going out and swinging my clubs lately. And it's kind of crazy, but I have found a passion for cooking. And have
Awesome.
made a commitment to my family because when my wife started having her health problems, she's not able to do as much. And so, especially since her stroke, I fought that. Like, I didn't want that one more added responsibility of now I got to cook dinner too. Like,
Yeah.
I fought it for a long time and we would just DoorDash or whatever. And that got really expensive. And so then
Yeah.
we switched to trying to do, pre-made meals that you just got to throw in the oven or whatever. And that worked for a while until my kids were brutally honest and said, Dad, these aren't good.
Yeah.
So then I made a goal beginning of this year that I'm going to have a meal every day for my family to eat, whoever's here. I have teenage kids, so they're all over the place, but I'm going to have a meal every day that whoever's here can sit down and eat together. And I am like, it may not seem like a huge deal, but I am so proud of the fact that since January 1, we have had a meal. I think we've maybe missed 2 days. And it has been
That's
pizza
amazing.
once or twice, but most of the time, and I told my wife the other day, like, I fought this for the longest time. That half hour to 45 minutes now of me preparing dinner is like me sitting in the sun. It's my time. I put some music on, no one bothers me, and I make dinner, and it's my time to just decompress from the day.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to find whatever it is for whoever out there to find that thing or a group of things, preferably, because sometimes one thing isn't always going to work, but like take time for yourself and make it a priority because and like I said, I felt guilty about it. And I still fight that. I fight like telling my wife when I get home from work, when I've been gone all day, hey, good to see you. I'm going outside.
Yeah.
Like I still fight that, but I know that it's important. And so yeah, I would tell everybody find something or a group of things that you enjoy doing just for you. And it could be a walk, it could be a run, it could be I mean, there's a million things.
Yeah. Anything at all. I totally get that because I've always thought that it's selfish to take care of myself and to put me first. But being a caregiver, and I'm a mother of four, all my kids are grown and moved out, and now I'm an empty nester. And I always thought that it was selfish to put me first. But over that time and taking care of everybody else, it started wearing on me mentally, physically, emotionally. So I learned the hard way that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't give the best of yourself to anybody else. And you can't take care of them. That's just not how it works. So I'm curious to know what you have learned, not only about yourself going through all this journey, but have you learned anything else about your wife? Anything new that I don't want to say surprised about, but that kind of like helped change your vision and the way you saw things, your perspective on things?
Man, that's a hard question. I actually have had so many people ask me that. Like when it first started happening, people would say, I know this is really hard, but you're going to be able to look back and see so many things that you've learned in going through all of this stuff. And I mean, in all honesty,
Sometimes.
I wanted to punch him
Yeah.
because when you're going through it, it's like, I want to hear that
I'm
this
going to
is all
learn
good.
something.
You're going to learn something from it because I feel like I know I have learned things from this, and I know I have grown as a person, and I know that my family has, my kids, everybody has grown and learned things from it. I always make the joke though, there had to be a better way. There had to be give me a 400-page manual of something, a self-help book I could have read to learn those same things. That there had to be an easier way, but I mean, it is what it is. Like we don't get to choose. We don't get to choose what's going to happen. If someone had told me 15 years ago, hey man, get ready. Your wife's going to have 3 open heart surgeries. Your daughter's going to break her arm. Your other daughter's going to break her collarbone. Your other daughter's going to cut the tip of her finger off. Your wife's going to then have a stroke. I would have either laughed or just packed my stuff and ran.
Yeah.
So thank goodness we don't know what's coming because yeah, we just got to fight through every single day. I mean, I have grown in ways that I can't even answer that question yet because
I
I know
understand
there
that.
are ways that I've grown that I don't even acknowledge yet.
Yeah.
The one thing that is visible to me is when I look at my 4 kids, and they are prepared for whatever comes their way. They are 4 of the strongest people that I know, and they don't even know it yet. That's
Yeah.
what's crazy. They don't even know it yet. But it doesn't matter what happens to them. They are prepared for anything. And my wife, when I look at her, man, to fight through everything that she's been through, she is a fighter. And we all have our bad days, but the majority of the time she's positive about it. She doesn't complain about it. I mean, we definitely have moments for sure. Everybody does. And I think it'd be crazy for someone to just sit here and say, I've been positive 100% of the time. That's not real. It's hard. And I think that that's we've been to this stroke recovery group that my wife's part of, and I've had to walk out multiple times because and it's a me thing. It's something I have to work on. But when I hear other people that have been through similar things talking so positively about it, it's not that I don't love positivity. I do. But I think it's also okay to just sit back and acknowledge this is really, really hard. And I'm struggling. We're going to get through it. I don't have a doubt in my mind. We're going to fight through this, but it's really, really hard.
It
And
is.
so when I sit and listen to people and they don't acknowledge that, they just talk about how great everything is, I get frustrated because I'm like, it's okay to be positive, but let's also be real about this. And, anyways, sorry, I don't even know if that answered your question.
No, that's you're fantastic because this is the reason why I'm doing this podcast. It's about life doesn't give us a map. It doesn't give us instructions. We have to figure everything out along the way. And there's people out there that don't know. They're just not ready. The people who are not responding the way that, like, they're not showing compassion or concern or really not even thinking about it, it's because they're not in that position mentally. They're not ready. They're not capable in the moment to be able to handle that. So it's okay to be able to, and I want to thank you for being vulnerable and being able to express everything so openly with me, with all of us, because it's important to see that you're a human being. We all go through this. And they're not alone. Like you said, you want to make sure people know that they're not going through this alone. You've gone through it too. You wouldn't believe how many people are out there thinking that they're the only ones, and they're not. So you answered that question perfectly. I don't think there's ever a right answer to any of that question at all. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your book because I think it's important that people be able to connect with you and get your book. So is there any place that they can get your book? I will put it in the description so they can get it. But I want you to tell a little bit more about your book, what you think people should know and what you would hope that they take away from the book and what they get from it.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. It's called Scars You Can't See. I brainstormed about what to call it for a long time, and that came to me in one moment, and I thought, man, that's perfect because certainly there are scars that everybody can see. but
Mhm.
people struggling with depression and anxiety and panic attacks and different things, which is really what the idea of the book is. It definitely goes through our story and kind of tells the history of everything that we've been through with my wife's health and everything like that. But then the idea was to give my personal top 10 list of the top 10 things that I have found throughout my journey that have helped me to deal with depression and anxiety and panic. And so it's backwards. The first chapter is number 10 and it counts down to number 1 and just goes through the things that
I
that
love that.
that I learned. And that's my hope, is that someone's going to read it and one of those chapters is going to be like, man, that could work for me. I'm going to give that a shot. And I say multiple times in the book, I've not perfected any of them. I still struggle every single day. I still have panic attacks. They're less frequent than they used to be, which is awesome. But I'm fighting depression and anxiety every single day. And it is, like, I going to my psychiatrist and talking to him again, my man brain jumps in and says, I don't want to be on medication. I can handle this. And he has told me multiple times, Paul, if you had diabetes, you'd be on medication for it. And depression and anxiety is a sickness just like diabetes is. And you have to wrap your brain around that and understand that and accept the fact that you need some medication for a while. And maybe at some point you get off of it, but what if you don't? Who cares? What if you have to take it for the rest of your life? If it helps you and makes you a happier, better person, great. But I mean, I've definitely fought that fight with my psychiatrist. I
Yeah.
mean, recent as a couple months ago, telling him, no, I'm feeling pretty good. I think we should get off this stuff. And he's like, pump the brakes a minute, buddy. Like, let's keep working at it. So,
I have some ideas for you later, not on here, but I do have some things that may help that are alternatives to that.
okay.
So they're just little suggestions. But I do believe that if things are severe enough, yes, you do need medication. But I'm not a big advocate on medication. I'm not a doctor either. But you know, I'm just I would rather do natural stuff. But that's me because I
No,
was
I would too. I would too.
yeah, I was what was it in 2016? My ex-husband and I, we were living in the same house, but we were separate lives. We were separated, and I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and they put me on medication, and I became a recluse. I quit leaving my room. I quit leaving my room. I did not shower for 2 years. I was like, no, I was waiting for death. And then at one point, I just sat there and thought, wow, not even death wants me. I'm still here, and not even death wants me. Now, do I do? And I got my hands on a laptop. I got myself a laptop, and I started looking for ways. Okay, how do I get out of the situation I'm in? How do I feel better because I don't like this? And I started. I found this guy named Eric Ho on YouTube, and he was talking about manifestations and your feelings and spiritual stuff and stuff like that, right? Really connecting with who you are. And then after I started following him, and after a while, he changed his name to Master Shreya Krishna. So I listened to him quite often. But then I got into other stuff, and slowly over time, I was like, you know what? I don't want to live this way. I ended up being 347 pounds. I could barely stand up and barely walk because my legs couldn't handle it. I had plantar fasciitis, and the doctors were telling me I had the knees of a 70-year-old. And it was either I lose the weight or I end up in a wheelchair the rest of my life. And I kept thinking, I don't want to be a bystander in my own life. I want to be an active participant. So I started looking for ways of changing my mindset and the way I was doing things. And now I live on my own. I support myself. And although I'm still going through some things here and there, life's amazing. And I've got a different outlook on life. And I don't mean to talk a lot about me, but
No, you're good. I love it.
I also started journaling and writing my own books. I had most of my life, I've been told you're too stupid, you're untalented, you're not capable of doing anything, you're worthless. You can't do anything. The only thing you're good enough to do is be a housewife and a mother, if you can even do that right. So last year, after I got diagnosed with a brain tumor, I started doing, I have a friend who has a course, it's called Ancestral Release. And what it does, it's a meditation course where she helps you walk through things and go back through. I don't know if you believe in meditation or not. And if that's
100%.
not, okay. Well, she does, and she'll walk you back through your meditation. She put me in the incubator because of what I was going through. Everything hit me all at once. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I'm alone. People that check on me. Without meaning to, I'm still a recluse. And so it was just, it was a lot all at once, and I was dealing with it alone. So she put me in her program called the Incubator, where she'd talk to me once a week for a month, besides doing her course. And I'm telling you, doing her course changed everything. Opened the floodgates, everything started pouring through. Now I have almost 30 books in the works in various different stages of being written. I'm running this podcast on my own. I did do a podcast before, like 3 years before. But it was more on business and mindset and health, and this is just my own thing because I left that company and they started their own podcast, and I took the podcast that I started and I changed it to my own, and now it's my own self journey and the journey with other people and getting to know, just really discovering who we are, because our conditioning in life tells us we have to be a certain way, right? And so we forget who we are and what we're capable of. So that's what my books are about, and that's what everything I'm doing right now is. So I totally understand where you're coming from and why you're doing things, and I think it's fantastic. And I'm sorry, maybe this is wrong to say, but I love the fact that you're a man and you're coming on here, you're being vulnerable, you're telling your story, and you're willing to share things, and you've written a book about it. And you're allowing other men and other people to stand up and say, you know what, this is okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to look at these things, and it's okay to want better, and it's okay to move forward through life and not be stuck in that depression and anxiety and look for other ways to be healthier and happier. My whole goal is to help people do that, but also help them to create a life they love and that they can be proud of. So
Love
I
that.
thank you so much for being on here. And, if you have any questions for me, you can feel free to ask. If you have anything else you want to talk about, feel free to do that. You're welcome back anytime. I just
I
wanted you
appreciate
to know a little bit more about me so you can understand that I'm coming from a place of understanding and knowing. I may not know exactly your story and everything that happened with that, and I did not experience that, and I will never tell you I experienced that. But I do have some idea. I come from a background of, I've got my own traumas and things I've been dealing with. I've got, I'm a caregiver, so I'm people and I take care of people with those issues. So I'm in that situation. I may not be in the exact situation, but I'm in the situation. I know what happens and how things play out. And I just want to tell you, you're so strong and you're such an inspiration. And I applaud you and I thank you for not only dealing with all of this and allowing us in and being vulnerable. You stuck it through with your wife and your kids, and you're still giving your all, and you're willing to change and do things to help benefit the entire family and not just thinking of yourself. And I want to applaud you on that. That is absolutely incredibly amazing, because not many people can do that, and not many people are strong enough to do that. It's not that they're not capable of it, but mentally and emotionally, they're not at that stage, or that they're not vulnerable enough or willing to be able to put themselves there. And you have, and I think that's a very commendable, and I'm so, so happy you did. And I'm so glad you did not decide to go the other route, because we would be missing out on somebody incredible. And I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I mean, this podcast would be different if you were talking to my kids or my wife, because and I hope I don't come across as I figured it all out, because I
No, no.
certainly haven't. And I have made mistakes along the way that I mean, man, if I could go back and redo so many things and so many dumb choices and decisions that I've made, but I was telling you a little bit about this before we started recording. I went to a training last week that a friend of mine puts on, and I just went, like, heard about it, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-day training, and I walked away from that completely different. And it's funny because in talking to my wife and my kids and people at work, like I just keep finding myself saying, well, at that training, well, remember that training I went to? Like everything is like funneling back to that because
Yeah.
my whole view of how I'm seeing the world now is so differently. I feel like I've been stuck in this spot where I'm not living life. I'm just coasting through, waiting for the next ball to drop. When's the next thing going to happen to my wife, or when's the next
So
thing
you're
going to
still in
happen in life?
survival mode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I don't want to be that way anymore.
Yeah.
And this training he talked about, the difference between waking up in a hostile world or a loving world. Which one do you want to be in? And if you wake up in a hostile world, you're constantly thinking of worst case scenarios, which then breeds fear and doubt, which then breeds anxiety and depression. He literally was sitting there talking, and I was like, "You're talking about me."
Yep.
And I don't want to be that way anymore. I want to wake up every day and I want to think about the things that I want to do, and I want to go out and make those things happen. I'm not going to sit back anymore, just whatever's coming will come and I can't do anything about it. No, like those things are going to come regardless.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that my therapist talks about all the time. Is like focus on your scope of control. If you're, we all know that like depression is focusing on the past and anxiety is focusing on the future, and I'm guilty of both every day. But he always tells me focus on your scope of control. If you're thinking about things that you don't have any control over, that is going to cause anxiety. There's no way around it. So if you're thinking about something and you can, that's the hard thing too sometimes for me, is like I can feel the anxiety, but I can't always identify why I'm feeling that way. But if I can identify it and I can acknowledge that it's something I don't have control over, then I do my very best to just dismiss it. Like, what's the point here? Wasting time focusing on when my wife's going to have another stroke, or this or that or whatever it is. Like those things are going to happen, and there's
Hmm.
literally nothing I can do about that. So to waste time being
Focusing
anxious
on.
about, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pointless. I mean, guilty of it as recently as 2 days ago.
Yeah.
But I'm trying, and that training literally just, I mean, it's like they jumped inside my head and just rewired a few things. I'm just seeing things differently, and so much of what they talked about in there is the law of the harvest, and what you put out
Yep.
you will get back. It's science. There's nothing you can do about it. So if you put out there negativity, it's that same thing. If you're thinking worst case scenario, that's going to breed fear, and then eventually depression and anxiety. Where if you're out every day thinking of the things that you want in life, and telling yourself, man, I'm lucky. I'm so blessed. You will, and I don't even think, sometimes he'd probably argue me on this. I don't even think that it necessarily means that more. I think it's both. I think that you put positivity out there, you will receive more positivity, but I also think that it's just you're in the mindset to acknowledge and see the positive things more than you would if you weren't in that mindset. So I definitely think it's a combination of the two. But that was a week ago, and I've already seen things in my life that I'm just like blown away by. I mean, little little dumb things, but like bigger things too. Um, this is such a stupid example, but I'm going to tell it anyways because I don't care. Uh,
Hey, go for it. We like
I
stupid
got,
examples.
I got, I got a new watch, and I was super excited about this new watch that I got, and I had asked my youngest daughter like what she thought about it, and she said, how much did you pay for it? And I said it was $50, and she said, oh, I thought you were going to say like 15, and I was like, wow. And she goes, well, I don't like it. I would never wear it. And so then the next day I was at work, and I found myself like fishing for compliments. Like I was like showing it to everybody I ran into. Look at my new watch. Look at my new watch. Just wanting compliments. And then I walked out to go run some errands, and I just had the conscious thought like, you are going to get an unsolicited compliment on this watch before the day is over. And within 15 minutes, at the first stop that I made, I was at a store, I was checking out, and the boy working there looked up at me and said, dude, that watch is awesome. Where did you get that? And it was just like, I said, you don't know how much that means to me. Like, I know that's nothing to you, but you don't know the backstory, and I'm not going to tell it to you, but like, that is proof to me
Hmm.
that what I put out there, I will get. It just like, it is the dumbest little example. And I wish I had some amazing, incredible example to give you. I don't yet, but I know they're coming.
Yeah, that's fine. I've learned to, because I deal with anxiety every once in a while too. Probably I have had two anxiety attacks, but I've really tried my best to not have them, to avoid them at all costs. And I just bring myself back to right now, the present moment. Live in the present moment, and then I start listing off what I'm grateful for, what I'm glad, makes me happy, and I focus on all the positive, and then I just release. I slow down and take deep breaths, slow deep breaths, and on the way when I'm breathing out, exhaling, I release all the negative, and I just kind of just try to reground myself to kind of keep myself in the moment. So, what I do now is I only live in the moment and I do whatever makes me happy and excited in the moment. And when you were talking about you were telling your daughter and trying to get your opinion from your youngest daughter on the watch, and she's like $15 watch, where my first thought was, thank God I didn't buy it for you, otherwise it'd
Yeah, for
disappear,
real.
right?
I told her it's good. You don't have to wear it. It's not for you.
Right? It's like that's what I would be thinking. But you're right. What you focus on, you get back, whether it be good or positive. And good or positive, they're both the same thing, but positive or negative. So yeah, I totally get it because you're always wanting to look at for the positive stuff, and people don't always. They're not in that moment or that mindset where, okay, so I have a client that is very set in the mindset the way I used to. And it's a very weird mindset. It's what the general public does. They're very stuck. They put themselves in boxes. They follow things to the T. Like, say for example, the other day, my client ordered a pizza from Papa Murphy's and I had to go pick it up. It's one of those you put in the oven and cook yourself. And I asked him, I said, can you just go in and turn the oven on so when I get back, we can just put it in? The oven's already heated up. Because he's so hell-bent on heating up the oven before he puts anything in it. And I'm just not that way. And I'm not a bad cook, I swear. It's just, I'm just impatient.
Yeah, I get it.
But he's hell-bent on, his response was, I can't, I don't have the recipe. I don't know, have the instructions yet. And my mother always told me, universally, if you don't know what temperature you cook something on in the oven, always start with 350.
350.
And he didn't know that. And I told him, just go put it on 350, it'll heat up. He could not do it because he did not have the instructions. So he closes his mind and I can't do something, I can't move without these things. Man is diabetic, does not check his glucose at all.
Mm.
Insists on having tons of candy. Every time we go to the store, I have to direct him away from candy. But yet he takes his medication religiously. And it's like, so the contradiction is just really weird. And I'm like, I have to stop and slow myself down and think, okay, these people are not in the same mindset that I'm in. They have not learned what I've learned. So they're not capable of this yet. They're not, I don't want to say awakened, but they're just not there. So I have to try to explain things in a way that makes sense for them to kind of get it. You know what I mean?
100%. It's interesting when you say like we're in our boxes because that's one of the things that at that training they talked about so much is like your paradigm and how you not only how you live but how you see the world because of how you were raised and the things you were taught. And like, forgive me because a lot of people have heard this story, but and I had heard it too, but he told this story of a husband and wife, and the wife was making dinner and she had this roast, and before she put it in the oven she cut an inch off the top of it and threw it away and put it in the oven. And the husband was like, why are you doing that? And she said, well, that's because my mom did it that way and it tastes so good. And long story short, he went 4 generations deep, went to her mom, her grandma, and eventually great grandma. They all did it that way. When he got to great grandma, she was like, he said, why do you do it that way? And he said, well, because it was too big to fit in the oven. And so for generations, people were doing it this way because that's how they had seen it done, but had no understanding of why they do it that way. And this is literally, I'm full of like dumb examples, but
I love the
it
dumb
like,
examples. They're the ones we
I
learn the
sat
best
there,
from.
I sat there thinking about it and I was like, this is crazy because like maybe 8 or 9 months ago, I had made dinner for my family the night before. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember being so proud of it because it was something I had never made before. I went into my office the next day and I was telling some of my coworkers about it, giving them the rundown of like the step by step and anyways, and I got done with this whole thing. And I was expecting to hear, oh, I want the recipe for that. I want you to write down the step by step instructions. Like, tell me how you did that. That sounds so good. Well, they all looked at me with this look on their face, and I was like, what? And they were like, you keep your potatoes in the fridge? And to me, I was like, of course I keep my potatoes in the fridge. Everybody keeps their potatoes in the fridge. And they were like, no, they don't. And like so much so that I was like, that you're lying. I posted a poll on Instagram and I was like, you keep your potatoes in the fridge, yes or no? Turns out I am massively in the minority of people that keep their potatoes in the fridge. And so I'm proud to say I've been liberated. I no longer keep my potatoes in the fridge. We have a whole nother drawer that's available for all kinds of stuff.
Potato girl.
But I went to my parents' house like after that training. I went there like 2 nights later and I said, why did you guys keep your potatoes in the fridge? And both my mom and dad were like, because that's what our parents did. And I actually went to their fridge and opened it up and opened the potato drawer and I took a picture of it because there they are sitting in their glory, the potatoes in the fridge. And I'm like, you don't have to do this. Like you don't have to live like this. And that's the dumbest example, but it's like there are so many things in life in the way we think, the way we handle emotions, the way we handle conflict, because subconsciously we were taught to do them growing up and we watched people handle them a certain way. So that's stuck inside of us that this is the way we handle this. When this happens, A happens, we go to B.
Yep.
There's no other way around there. And it was just eye opening to me because I shared that in that training and everybody got a good laugh out of it that I'm the dumb guy that keeps my potatoes in the fridge. But the guy doing the training, he said, well, like, have you ever looked at your personal life and like the way you handle your emotions and the way you handle conflict, and have you looked at it in your business life, and you guys surely have systems in place? Are they the best systems, or are they the systems that have been in place for years because when you got hired you got trained to do it that way and you continue to do it that way because that's the way you were taught to do it? Have
Mm-hmm.
you ever stopped and said, is there a better or an easier way to do these things than the way that I'm doing them? And it was like, I even told him after, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to downplay what you said, but it's kind of like one of those moments where it's like, duh, why haven't I thought of that before? But my brain just exploded with like, this is crazy. I have been handling things a certain way for so long, both at work and at home. And I've never stopped and looked at myself in the mirror and thought, hey, is there a better way or an easier way to be doing this rather than the way you're doing it? And there's going to be times where the answer is no. Like, I've got this dialed, this system works, we can't improve upon it. But like, I would say more often than not, there's always a way to make a system better, or have a whole extra drawer in your fridge for other stuff. You don't need to put your freaking potatoes in there anymore. I don't know. It was eye opening to me. I loved every minute of that training, and it was life changing.
That's awesome. I love that. So, is there anything, if you could leave the listeners with anything, any one takeaway, what would it be?
I would say two things. One, and I have learned this in going through this because I've had so many people tell me like, I don't know how you've done it. I don't know how you've done what you've done. And it's interesting because I've looked at it from my kids and thought the same thing. Like, man, I don't know how you guys have done everything that you've done. But you only know what you know. And this is the life that I have, and I don't know any other life. So to me, this was just it. But I would say number one, like, you got it. Whatever it is, just know that you've got it, and you are capable of so much more than you think that you're capable of. And the second thing I would say, and just as someone who has been through deep dark depression, my call to action would be to those people that might be watching this, where you can identify in your head someone that you think might be struggling. because the person that's struggling is not going to call you most times and say, "Hey man, I'm struggling, I need some help."
Mm-hmm.
Because they've convinced themselves. And that I got asked that question the other day, and I was like, well, reach out to someone. Nobody out there is alone. You always have family and friends. But then I quickly was like, wait, full stop on that, because I have family and friends, and I definitely felt alone. So my call to action is to those, like, look at your friends, look at your family, look at your neighbors. If you see someone who you think might be struggling, you don't have to go right up to them and say, "Are you struggling with depression and anxiety?" But reach out to them and check in on them and be deliberate and be intentional about it. Because for myself, and I don't know if it goes across the board for everybody struggling with depression and anxiety, but I still fight with it to this day, where someone will invite me to do something that, man, I know I would have a blast doing it, but my depression kicks in and tells me to come up with any excuse that I can not to do it.
Yeah.
And then I don't do it, and then I hear about how much fun they had, and then I'm more depressed that I missed out on it, and it's just a vicious cycle. So the call to action would be, identify someone that you think could use your help, be deliberate, be intentional, call them. I had a really good friend when I was struggling. He knew I was going to make any excuse, so he didn't give me an out. He would call me and say, "Hey, a group of us are getting together. We're going to go dinner, then we're going to go to a movie. You are coming. I will be to your house to pick you up at 7 o'clock." And I mean, I had no out.
Yeah.
And I tried. I tried. I would come up with all kinds of excuses, and he was like, "I don't care. I'll be there at 7." And so, like, I think that's so important because, like I said, the person that's struggling more often than not is not going to be the one standing there waving their hand saying, "Guys, I need help." It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
When you are in the throes of depression and anxiety, you have mentally convinced yourself that you are alone and nobody will understand it. And so now I'm going to follow that up with a third thing. I know I said I was only going to do two, but the third thing is, if you are struggling, I know you feel like you're alone. And I know that you feel like there's no one out there who understands what you're going through, but I promise you there are people that get it. All you got to do is start talking. And as soon as you start talking to someone, they're going to be able to tell you, "Oh man, I get that. I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I got this that I'm dealing with." And you get to relate to people on a level that you didn't think was possible, but all you got to do is start talking.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. It is something that you don't know how you don't know what other people are going through and how they're dealing with things and what they're dealing with. But even a smile at somebody can make their life completely different and make them feel seen and understood. So even if you're not there to talk to that person about what they're going through, just being present helps them in tremendous ways. And then eventually, when they're ready, they will open up and they will say something that will open that door for you to step in and start saying, "Okay, I'm here. I'm here to listen. I don't even have to respond if you don't need me to or don't want me to, but I can listen and I'm here for you." And to just be there,
Yeah.
just be their sounding board.
I I'm so sorry. I'm going to go back to that training. This will be the last time I talk about it.
You're good. Don't worry about it.
When you said that, this kind of hit me. He was talking about that, like being there and being present, and he was like, so often we're just caught in the day to day and we're not even aware of what's going on around us. And he used this example of, like, going to the grocery store and you're going to check out. And he said, "What does everybody look for? The shortest line. How can I get out of here the fastest?" And he said, and what usually happens is you get in that shortest line and it ends up being the longest line. And you get frustrated and you're mad at yourself because you picked the wrong line, and you're mad at the person in front of you that is deciding to pay with a check or whatever it may be. But he said, I try to shift my frequency and my way of thinking to the idea that there's a reason that I was in this line. And maybe it's the person in front of me needs to hear some encouraging words.
Mm-hmm.
That was just it was a totally different frequency, different way of thinking to me, that that's who I want to be. And
Yeah.
let me rephrase that. That's who I will be. I
Yes.
am going to be that person.
You already are that person. You already are that person, but that person is dormant. And you're
Not
bringing
anymore.
you're waking that person up. That's all it is. The person you've always wanted to be is already there. It's just letting that person out. That's all it is.
He is on the
Giving
way
yourself
out, and
that permission.
I told my wife and kids like because they do this 2 day training, but then they do like some coaching stuff too, and I'm going to do the coaching with them. And I said, give me 2 or 3 months, you're not even going to know who I am. I'm the same
Exactly.
person, but the way I see the world is going to be completely different, and I my excitement level is through the roof. Probably you can tell because I brought it up 15,000 times in this short little conversation. I'm
Yeah.
so excited about where I see that I can go.
Yep.
That has me just I'm as amped up as I've ever been.
I am so excited for you. Your journey it has been incredible. Tell your wife not to be so interesting. She can calm down. Everything's okay. You love her very much, but this interesting lifestyle is gotta, chill out a little bit. Just a little at least.
Take a break.
I'm so thankful that you decided to be here with me, Paul. This conversation has been absolutely incredible. I do want you to mention your book one more time, at least the title. I would love to be able to offer you the chance to be on again if you're willing. Even if your wife or kids would like to be on, with you, that would be awesome. That invitation is there. I do want to give you some things when we end here. But I want to thank you so much for being here and for being vulnerable and be willing to talk to us. And you now have a sister, a fellow traveler in your journey through life. You can contact me at any time for anything you need, okay?
I love it.
I will be there for as much as I can. So just give us the name of your book one more time, and we're going to link the book and the other program in the description for the
Yes.
podcast, so for the episodes, so you guys can get into those
Yeah.
and check him out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Book is called Scars You Can't See by Paul Gehring. Make sure that you get the one by Paul Gehring. There is another book out there with the same title, and my own sister ordered the wrong one. So that's love her to death, but she ordered the wrong book. Yeah,
Make sure
Scars You
you
Can't
use
See.
the link we give
It's
you.
on Amazon. The link will be there. And I did again, like I said, it was gonna be the last time I mentioned it, but that pivot point training that I went to that literally changed my life. I reached out to them because I wanted to make sure that they were okay, that I talked about it on here with you. And not only was he okay with it, they sent me a link and I'll forward it to you and you can put it in the comments or whatever. But they were willing to give 75% discount on that 2 day training to anybody that wants to do it. So
Oh, that's
I
fantastic.
don't know. Unfortunately, I think it's local in Utah,
Well, did you?
but maybe they do an online one as well. But I'll talk to them about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is maybe they have an online one if people can't travel there. But if not, then it gives them a reason to go vacation, travel to Utah and check
Yeah,
out
and check out Utah.
yeah, you never know.
No,
People will go, they will move heaven and earth in order to be able to grow and change and better themselves. So you never know. So we'll go ahead and put those links in the description below this episode. If you guys got anything from this episode today, be sure to like, comment, and share. Let this reach as many people as possible because we truly believe that everybody deserves to be happy and healthy. Want everybody to join us on our journey through life because we're not given a map and we have to make one up on our own. So, with that being said, thank you guys for being here. We love you guys. Let us know what you guys thought. If you have any comments or anything else, if you want to know how to get in contact with Paul, let me know and he will give me, if he gives me permission, I will get you guys in contact with him for anything you guys need, any questions or anything you guys have. And thank you guys so much for being here.
thank you.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Life's a Trip. If you're figuring it out as you go, same here. Hit follow, leave a review if you're feeling generous. And remember, you don't need the whole map. You just need the next step.